Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they wake up too late to control their own lives. If you've ever set your alarm for 5 in the morning, promised yourself this time would be different, then hit snooze and felt guilty before breakfast. This story's about you. One man with no degree, no money, and no connections discovered that the quiet hour before sunrise decides who stays stuck and who escapes. Listen carefully, because if you miss this, 5 years from now, you'll still be asking why nothing changed. Have you ever set your alarm for 5 in the morning with big plans resting quietly in your heart, only to silence it and fall back into sleep? And when you wake again, the light is already high in the sky and guilt arrives before breakfast, reminding you that once again you promised yourself change but chose comfort instead, telling yourself that you are not a morning person, that you need your sleep, that tomorrow will be different, yet deep down wondering why nothing ever truly changes. Because the truth most people never hear is that the first quiet hour of the day holds more power than the loudest motivation speech. And this is not a story about forcing yourself awake. It is a story about listening. Listening to a moment most people sleep through. And it begins in a small industrial town where factory chimneys breathed slowly into the night sky, and a 32-year-old man named Thomas worked while the rest of the world dreamed. Every evening at 8, he arrived at the warehouse gate. Every morning at 6, he walked home exhausted, drained, and invisible. His salary barely enough. His apartment small and dim, his mattress on the floor, a single flickering bulb above him. But the deepest weight he carried was not poverty. It was the feeling of being trapped, because every morning as he walked home past quiet streets, he saw life through other people's windows. Families eating breakfast, children preparing for school, men in clean shirts stepping into purpose. And Thomas would ask himself in silence, "Will this be my life forever?" Thomas was not lazy. He worked harder than most people, walking miles every night, staying alert, doing his duty, but hard work alone was not changing anything. He was working hard in a life that was going nowhere, and every morning when he collapsed into bed while the world moved forward, he felt like he was living backwards. Until one cold Tuesday morning in November, his phone rang as he was leaving work. It was his sister, her voice shaking as she said, "Thomas, you need to come home." Mama collapsed. She is in the hospital. The bus ride to the countryside felt endless, fields passing slowly through fog. And in the small rural clinic his mother lay weak but conscious, her hands warm but tired as she held his, and whispered that she did not have much time left and begged him not to waste his life the way she had, asking him to promise to find a way. And that night, as Thomas stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness, it was 5 in the morning, the village asleep, farmers already walking, birds beginning to sing, and standing there in the quiet dawn, something inside him broke open, not with sadness, but with resolve, as he whispered no more. "I will not live like this anymore. I will find a way." On the bus ride back to town, sunlight spilled gently through the windows, and across from Thomas sat an older man, calm, well-dressed, reading a book as if time itself had slowed around him. It was Mr. Chen, a successful businessman, and when Thomas asked why he was on such an early bus, Mr. Chen smiled and said, "Because I wake before the world wakes," explaining that the hours between 5 and 7 in the morning are not ordinary hours, they are magic hours. Hours when you can build a life while everyone else is still dreaming. And later in a small cafe, Mr. Chen drew a simple house in a notebook, telling Thomas that his life was falling apart because he never worked on the foundation, explaining that 2 focused hours every morning become 14 hours a week, 60 hours a month, more than 700 hours a year, the equivalent of 3 extra months of life that most people sleep through. And then he laid down the rules. Wake up at 5 every day without negotiation. Sleep by 9, except that the first weeks will be painful, because after 21 days it becomes normal, and after 90 days it becomes who you are. The next morning, Thomas's alarm screamed at 5 a.m., and his body protested. His mind whispered just 1 more hour, but he remembered his mother's face, his promise, the quiet dawn, and he stood up. The first week was agony, the second week exhausting. But every morning while the world slept, he studied, learning skills that could change his future. He walked empty streets as the sky turned pink and gold, and somewhere around day 20 he woke up before the alarm, his body adapting, his mind sharpening. By month 2, the lessons made sense. His confidence grew, his posture changed, and by the 3rd month he applied what he learned, creating a simple system that organized the warehouse better than ever before, catching the attention of supervisors, then managers, then owners, until one afternoon he was offered a day job with double the salary. A moment that felt unreal because only months earlier he had been invisible. 1 year later, Thomas had become the lead accountant, moved his mother into proper care, and lived in a warm apartment filled with sunlight. Yet every morning at 5 he still woke up, not because he had to, but because those quiet hours had become sacred. When cow workers asked why he still woke so early, he smiled and said, "Success is not a destination. It is a daily practice," and his practice began before sunrise. And my friend, this is what Thomas's story proves, that your life can change. Not someday, not when circumstances improve, but quietly, starting tomorrow morning, because the difference between where you are and where you want to be is not talent or luck or even hard work. It is how you use the time when everyone else is sleeping. So tonight, set your alarm for 5. Place your phone across the room. Choose one thing to build for 90 days. Protect your sleep, and remember that your future does not need loud beginnings. It only needs a small, quiet promise made before sunrise. And when the alarm rings tomorrow, will you be awake?